Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am Gebo the Shaman, and I teach practical spirituality that gets results. That's the whole point of everything that I teach, even here on my courses, in my Patreon, in my Vedic astrology readings, all of that. The whole purpose is teaching spirituality practically that gets results. So today we're going to be talking about living in your heart versus living in your head. And I see a lot of new agey people living in their head and not in their heart, not connecting with their feelings. They'll deny their feelings, they'll act out passive aggressively. Jeez, I can't talk today. So, they'll do things like, avoid their feelings, things like that. And, hey, it takes one to know one. I'm guilty of that just as much as anybody else. But through these practices over here, I have learned how to get out of that, and I do my best to live from my heart instead of living from my mind. Okay, so what's the difference between the heart and the mind? So the heart is, well, in Vedic astrology we call the moon, or the moon is related to the heart mind, right? So the heart mind. Well, so that's great, but what does that mean? So the heart mind is, it's the part of you that corresponds with your emotions and not necessarily your thoughts, because your thoughts can be, intellectual, but I would say heart-centered thoughts, like, thoughts about your feelings, thoughts about your past, thoughts about, how you truly feel deep inside, not just what you think of, like your opinion or your some superficial like thought that you might have. That's the brain. Your deeper thoughts are the thoughts that come from your heart. Okay, so the brain is, well, I say, what did I title this? Like, get out of your brain and get into your heart, something like that. Your brain or your mind is your intellect. So when we all need an intellect to function in this world, to because if you're just driving down the road and you don't know what a red light means, if you don't know what a green light means, if you don't know what the yellow lines are on the road, what the white lines and the yellow lines mean, those are all things that we need our intellect for, our mind for. But so we're living in that space. Most of us Westerners are living in that space, in that, dualism, intellect, parsing things out and trying to figure out, what's going on from like an intellectual perspective. And so the more we do this, the more we're neglecting how we, tapping into our feelings, how we actually feel about things. And so it's through our feelings that we have our intuition. It's through our feelings that we have our base feelings about things, like our instincts, our intuition, things like that. So we need to get out of the intellect, which is, all about, doing things in this world, all about like, intellectual concepts, basically. So when I hear people or new agey people, new agey YouTube channels talking about all these new age buzzwords, I'm like, what does that really mean? What real practical what practical information does that have? How can that, benefit my life? And most of the time it's just intellect. It's just coming from the intellect. It's just, we have these buzzwords called, star seeds and ascension and blah blah blah. Indigo children, whatever. And none of that means anything unless you actually know what it means. And that's all to do with the intellect. So if you're just to ask a random person about, some new age terminology, they probably wouldn't be able to understand you or know what you're talking about. And that's why that makes, new agey people look kind of crazy. So, to normal people who are just living their lives. So we're talking about mainly the difference between the heart and the mind. So I kind of explained that already. But let me just check on time real quick. And we're good. So I don't know. Basically, it's so when you in Western society, we're always living from our intellect, from our mind, from our brain, the thing that helps us to interact in this world. But what we're really avoiding is our feelings. And so if we can get honest about our feelings, we'll be less prone to go into the intellect. We'll be less prone to overindulge in intellectual things. And, the intellect is great, but there's this tendency to not be practical with it, which is what I'm all about, practicality. I only do this stuff that I teach. I only do this stuff because it gives me results. It gives me an outcome. It gives me results. I would not do this stuff if it weren't for that practical reason. Because if you're just doing something for the hell of it, what's the point, really? What's the point? So if you're doing something and it doesn't give you results, then there is no point in doing that. It's just kind of a waste of time. I mean, I think of it as a waste of time. So, but I'm all about improving my life, and if you're not about that, then we probably won't have much in common, and you probably don't want to be watching this channel right now. So, but anyway, so the more we're in the intellect, we're thinking, we're processing, we're processing information, we're thinking about things, and we are just in our mind. Our minds are at work, and so this takes all the energy from our body and it brings it up to our mind, and it stays there. So naturally we're all, we have all this energy in our mind, but then we're neglecting how we actually feel at a primal, instinctual level. And so the more we can become honest with how we feel, which is why my mentor, asks people for not only their questions, but their honest feelings. The more that we can become honest with how we really feel, the more we can, get out of the intellect, because our intellect is there to stop us from feeling. It's there, let's say you're in a dangerous situation in a battlefield, right? You need to know, your team's, under fire, and you need to know how to kill the enemy as quickly as possible, right? So that way you can get your people out of danger and home safely, right? Well, if we go into the emotion of it, then that's going to take over our sensibilities. We're going to be overwhelmed with emotion. So there's a proper time and place for emotion, but the middle of the battlefield is not it. That's why we have our intellect. Our intellects, is there to solve problems. Our intellect is there to ensure our safety. It's there to keep us, a safeguard. It's there to help us, to ensure our safety and stuff like that. And so, when things feel unsafe, when emotions feel unsafe, then we have our intellect go, we want to indulge in, our intellect. So, that's pretty much how that works. So, let's say you are in the battlefield, you're using your intellect to wipe out the enemy as quickly as possible. Once that's done, then what happens? So once that's done, we, go return to base, return home or whatever, and then that's the proper time to process our emotions, right? But a lot of us don't do that. Our emotions are too overwhelming for us to actually think about them and process them and take them in and just experience how we're feeling. And so once again, this is something that I'm learning. I'm going to therapy and doing all that. So, so I find that a lot of spiritual people are just in their intellect. They're just, wrapped up in, the Pleiadians, the star seeds, the blah, 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 the blah, blah, the ascension, the indigo children, the, what is it? you get what I'm saying. So, but none of that actually has a practical effect on your life. And I won't even go to the extent of saying that those things don't exist, because how the hell do I know? They might exist. But what I do know is that focusing on those things that are out in the other worlds do not help your life. They don't, have a practical effect on enhancing your life. It's just mental masturbation. It is, giving energy to things that that stimulate you mentally, but that don't actually have a practical effect on your life. So guys, let me check on time. And we're good. So yeah, I'll just leave it here. Once again, if you guys would like to experience some courses, some actual practical things that you can do to get practical results in your life, some practical, grounded, down-to-earth spiritual practices, go here. I'm having a massive sale. Go there to find out more about all my stuff. Links are also down below in the description. But yeah. Alright guys, so yeah. Let me just see here. Yeah. So we're good on time. I just wanted to let you guys know about that that the sales that I have going on. And until next time, get out of your head and get into your heart. Okay? Peace.